Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at another night of hoops here in the NBA, second night of this young 23-24 season. Definitely want to make sure to like and subscribe to that page. We're going to be bringing you these videos each and every weekday this season. Got our best bets video here for you guys. Also have a play-up props video we're bringing you each and every day as well. So check that one out also. Also head to thelines.com. You can check out everything we're putting up on the site right now and use that handy dandy odds finder tool. Make sure you're getting all the best odds and lines available to you guys from these books this season. Nate, let's go ahead and jump right into our first pick here. I guess I will say we went 1-3 in the best bets last night, 2-2 in the play-up props. Still feeling things out in this young NBA season as we move ahead here, but feeling pretty good about tonight. I think there's actually some value with such a big slate here.
Yeah, the takeaway from the first night is that there were a lot of moving parts in the offseason. Teams might need a little time to get adjusted, which led to some scattered offense in that Golden State game. Also, Bradley Beal being ruled out. But, you know, everybody playing catch up with the Denver Nuggets, it seems, who still are ahead of the curve with everyone just fitting in alongside Jokic perfectly. Looking at this 12-game slate, though, I'm taking a big dog. Let's call it Portland plus 10 at the Clippers because Clippers are still taking more of the money here. It opened -9 or lower, but it's creeping up. And I think we're just considering the Blazers to be, you know, still the tanking version we saw at the second half of last season, the last two seasons, where they were just complete, not trying, just getting blown out. But as you might remember, they actually started really well last year. I mean, granted with Dame Lillard leading the way, but they covered in 8 of their first 9 road games, including winning outright at the Lakers, Kings, and Suns to open last season. I think this is a plucky team that we're underrating a little bit, especially in terms of their depth. I'd say on paper right now, their depth is much better than the Clippers, who, you know, coming into last year, we were like, wow, this is such a deep team. They're so versatile and deep. Well, now they have an ancient power forward rotation of Nick Batum, Mook Morris, and Robert Covington, and they can't put Terrence Mann into that spot because he's out tonight. And Bones Highland is questionable as well for the opener. Sure, Kawhi and PG are going to be out there. They haven't really blown up against Portland. I mean, PG's been very efficient his last few against them. Kawhi, 24 points per game on 44% shooting, which is inefficient for him. It's more just the case of, right, do they kind of cater to their competition? Are they saving something for at Utah in 2 nights, which is a much more exhausting and daunting task? So covering 10 for the Clips, I will pass on that. I will take the Blazers to just be plucky out of the gates here, with Scoot and Shaedon Sharpe being an exciting backcourt. Simons is healthy now. He was not healthy at all last season. DeAndre Ayton, you know, putting a chip on his old shoulder, saying he's going to prove something now that he's out of the shadow of Book and CP and Phoenix. And then you have some stabilizers in terms of Brogdon, who's played really well against the Clippers his last few. Robert Williams is a defensive chip if you want to throw him out there, protect the rim. There's a lot of options for Portland here, and I just think that coming out of the gate, being such a big dog, that they're going to be competitive, and maybe down the stretch not so much, but I like them on opening night here.
I gave them a long, hard look at for tonight, and completely agree with everything you're saying. It was for the reasons that you're saying. I don't know how long this is going to last for Portland. Like, there's so many outs where they blow up in a lot of different ways, and somewhat on purpose, I think, right? Is even though it seems like it was a weird sort of tank get rid of Dame job when they end up with Malcolm Brogdon and Rob Will on their rotation. They also re-signed Jeremy Grant to all that money. So at that point in time, they kind of sold the idea that they were going to be completely selling and tanking at this point because of the way that they spent that money. Not even really a tradable contract. So I think they're going to stick with what they have, and we'll see how it rolls. But there's a few guys on the team that have what we might call some potential attitude problems, and I think there's some equal amount of guys that are really good locker room guys. So it's a really 50-50 shot with Portland, but at the end of the day, right now, first game of the season, none of that really comes into play yet. It's just a talented roster versus an old roster. So I think it's a solid start to the best bets for today. I'm going to get into a game here that should be full of points. Sacramento is at Utah, and I'm taking Sac minus 1.5. I don't think it's like a super mispriced line, even though it looks so small for one team that was the 3 seed and one team that didn't make anything last year. But like Utah was so weird last year. It was sort of hard to get a hold of when when they were going to play guys and when they weren't, really is what it came down to. Markkanen missed a ton of games. It was the second half of the season, which coincided with when they brought Walker Kessler on and got better down low and switched everything around from being one of the worst teams at guarding centers to one of the best teams at guarding centers. But I still think this type of center, DeMontis coming in, is a big problem for him, and a reason that they went 3-1 to the Kings against the Jazz last year, covering the 2 points in all the games that they won. The one that they lost was actually a weird game where Markkanen didn't even play. They sat a bunch more guys in Utah, and it was just like that one of those weird nights where the team that sits everybody has guys coming out gunning, and Sacramento just had their starters on just another night in crappy Utah. Both these teams are good in this scenario. Utah is always going to have one of the best home court advantages in the league, and they were good at home last year, especially as home underdogs, if you want to consider them that with a minus 1.5 spread. We're basically saying this is a pick 'em. But Sac was also the number one team against the spread when they were the away favorites, 26-15, and that's often because like they're not huge road spread favorites, right? Like those spreads were not very big. They were all the ones that they covered. They won by an average of 4.2 points. So they're covering some decent sized spreads, but the 4 points is about what they're winning by. So not what they're covering by. Sorry, what they're winning by is 4.2 points. So I just think for the Kings team, it's something we talked about in the futures video. They're going to take a step forward by simply being so young, and these guys still being in progressive years within their career. None of them are even 27, really. I mean, DeMontis is their sort of old, savvy vet at 27 years old. Everybody else, including De'Aaron Fox, is 25 years old. And then obviously you got Harrison Barnes, the politician there at 31, which is a big reason that he came back. But one of the guys I'm looking to improve a ton is Keegan Murray. We just saw him look like LeBron James in Summer League, obviously against much lesser comp, but he showed that like he's on a different level than guys who are trying to make the roster or who are going to be bench players that are all playing in summer league. He's like, I don't belong with y'all. Let me make that very clear. I can drop 40 on you guys in 3 quarters whenever I want. So I love that level of confidence and where he's at now, and his specific skill set is 3-point shooting, which, by the way, his on-the-ball stuff got so much better. It was really fun to watch for Keegan. But his shooting is a big reason why you can beat the Jazz. They do give up a ton of threes. I think you're going to see Jordan Clarkson for 32-plus minutes, which always means you're going to get some pretty good perimeter play from your team. So I think it's a really great spot to take Sac minus 1.5 while people still don't really believe in them, and they're going to continue to be a good team in the West.
Yeah, this is concurrent with a lot of our futures takes, which is that the Kings are just getting disrespected after not changing anything and just coming in with another year of experience. I think they were even money to be a 7 seed or better in the West at DraftKings this week. I don't know if that's corrected yet, but I definitely bet that. I mean, they were the 3 seed, of course, and I just don't expect that much regression. The Jazz, the only thing that concerns me is the piped-in crowd noise and the little bit of elevation in Utah. It's a tough place to play for sure. But the Kings, they like I said, they one more year of experience, won a huge Game 6 in Golden State in the playoffs. It's not like they're going to be shook by this moment. And sometimes, they're kind of in that right age range where they're not like feeling the pressure of expectations. They're in fact feeling the motivation of being overlooked again in a crowded Western Conference. And so I do think they come out and give you a fair shake here. If it gets down to the clutch, you got De'Aaron Fox in the clutch, so that's always great. The clutch player of the year. Let's go with another small spread, small road favorite. Cavs -1 at Brooklyn. I don't understand. I mean, it was -2.5, and it's crept down, I guess, because Darius Garland is legit questionable. But people are still betting the Cavs. Jared Allen is out. That's all right. Look, the Cavs went 11-2 last year when Garland was out and averaged 3 more points per game, in part because they have Donovan Mitchell now, and it's just like unlock Donnie and then lean on that defense. But I mean, there is some numbers here to indicate overs. They went to 230 and 224 while beating Brooklyn twice in March. This iteration of the Brooklyn Nets, they went over in one of them, despite Brooklyn shooting a putrid 9 for 33 from deep, which is not going to happen again. But I'm looking at more just the Cavs to win, not trying to mess with the total this early because we don't know about the style of play as teams come into the season. But what we do know is that Cleveland smokes teams that are below 500 teams. They went 30-5 against them last year, and they were themselves below 500 against winning teams. So trust them to handle business here against a Nets team that, yes, was 10-13 after trading KD, was 6-9 at home down the stretch. And I think there's some motivation here for the Cavs after just totally getting embarrassed by the Knicks in the playoffs. It's a lot to prove here coming into the season. They were just, their offense was completely shut down. And I think that they're going to have a much better opportunity to find some offense here against the Nets team that, without Mikal Bridges, with him having such a high usage rate, he's not going to be that stopper that's going to try to contain Donnie Mitchell. Evan Mobley expected to take a leap on both ends of the floor. I will take the Cavs here against in slightly inferior opponent. I just don't think, and the Nets have much of a home court advantage in that sleepy Barclays Center, so I'm fine with them on the road.
It feels like we're both just making the first picks of the season based on how we're projecting the entirety of the season. Like, we're both looking at this being like, Cavs are going to be really good in the East this year. Brooklyn Nets are not going to be very good in the East this year. So we're like, 1 point, give me that, which I'm fine with the logic that we're using. It's similar to the logic that I'm using with Sack, and why I agree with both of your picks is just like, one team is definitely 4 points better than the other one in this one. So we get them on the road. Look, there was something to the idea that the Cavs were incredible at home last year and stinky on the road. But I do think Donovan Mitchell is going to take a little bit of a leap, to be honest with you. I think his points per game is actually going to go up maybe a little bit, right around like 28-ish this year. So I think, which is what he was last year. But I'm with you on this one as well. I'm not as worried about the Allen being out injury. I am a little bit worried about the Garland one for the points that I think they're going to need. But I do like an over a bit more in this one. It's scary to play these totals, like you said, until we know a bit more about the style of play that we're going to get. Max Strus on that team now could speed things up a bit for them as well. Really good rebounder and then get out and transition guys. So I think that we're going to see a pretty fast Cavs team at times this year. Finishing things up, I'm going to an SGP, and I didn't put him in player props, but I'll probably mention in the player props video that I took him in this video because it's Wembanyama, and Wemby is at 2.5 blocks for plus money. You can just take that if you want. It's plus 110 for him to get 3 blocks. 20 plus points as well. You can get that for plus money on DraftKings, like plus 145, because his total set around 17.5, 18.5, depending on where you're finding it. Like, I've watched him play live 3 times now, Nate, and maybe that is impacting what's happening to me. And I understand that the first 2 times were in the summer league against like a Scoot Henderson team and whatever. But then I also watched him against the Dubs in preseason, and he was playing 20 minutes a game in preseason. I have no reason to believe he's going to play less than like 25 to 30 in the regular season per night as well. And he was getting 19.5 points and 3 blocks per game in those 19.5 minutes in the preseason. Like, he's blocking dudes from 20 feet away. He just changed the geometry of the game. Everybody he blocks is like, how... I've never been blocked from there. I've always just had it in my brain condition that like, oh, I'm here, you're there, I can shoot because physics dictate that no one's arm can freaking reach this far. And Wemby defies all that. So I like the smoothness with which he looked on offense. I'm totally fine. Like, his ability to shoot in transition is absurd. I don't necessarily need to make this just a rant about how good he is, but I will say he's playing the Mavs. And the Mavs at times last year were surprisingly good against centers, but that's also just because they were so bad everywhere else, especially once they lost guys like DFS and Reggie Bullock and just started playing the Kyries and Josh Greens of the world, which is, once again, what we talked about in futures with the Mavs. Derek Lively, really good college defensive center who averaged 6 points a game. What is that going to mean? Like, what is that going to do, right? So once he's out of the game, and you can't expect that their starting rookie center to necessarily play more than 25 minutes per game. Like, I don't know how he could be there in the ending lineups, right? The closing lineups. He's just not able to, which means now you're talking about 6'8" Dwight Powell or 6'7" Maxi Kleba guarding 7'5" Victor Wembanyama. Like, he's just going to shoot from wherever he wants. He's going to get whatever he wants. It's going to be a thing this year. Like, it's not overhype. There's not much you can do to stop him when you're 7'1", right? And they don't have anybody to do that. Like I said, outside of Lively, like, there's just points to be had galore. And the 3-point line is going to be a place that he's probably going to get he's probably going to get 3 to 5 looks from deep. And you got to expect him to make a couple of those as well with his shooting. So there's a lot of holes in this Mavs team. I think Wembanyama is going to find all of them.
Plus 400 for these two is really intriguing. Yeah, I mean, I have no problem picturing the blocks because, yeah, what you mentioned with the geometry and with what the Mavericks depend on offensively, which is two guys who either do these sort of herky-jerky Euro steps in the lane and expect to be able to get the shot up somehow, and that's just not going to work against Wemby, or guys who take step-back jumpers. And so I think the blocks are going to be there in this matchup for sure. If he can stay out on the floor, avoid foul trouble against those two guys. The scoring, it might be a little bit of an adjustment period from preseason, and we'll see if there's one thing that a more physical team can do to get him off his spots in regular season play. But, I mean, he's facing a rookie center, like you said, Derek Lively. I mean, so it's – and Dwight Powell, I think, is questionable or out for this one. So the Mavs don't have many options to deal with him. The range of outcomes – could certainly go near 30 points, which I think you said you kind of drunkenly placed a 32-plus point bet the other night. I mean,
I was sober. Excuse me, I was sober.
yes, but drunken click. It's Greg Popovich. He's going to do what people don't expect. So if you're like, oh, Wemby's going to only play like half the game, etc., like he might just be like, no, unleash him 40 minutes, like just do your thing, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, counter thought to the mainstream thinking of Pop resting everybody because that's what we've seen him do since 10 years ago now. He's really been the like rest guys guy, and really even with the Duncan Spurs once they got old. But that's our lasting memories of him. Like, why would he not play Wembanyama? Like, what? First of all, he's like 78. How much longer is he going to be there? He's going to get as much as he can out of Wemby. But either way, I think you're just going to see him be wildly efficient in the 28-ish minutes that I predict him playing. So we'll see. It's going to be a really interesting night with 12 games tonight. That's all the time we have in the best bets, but we do have the play-up props up for you guys as well. So make sure to check that one out. And until we see you next, happy betting.